We've got 7 different stories to cover from 7 different media outlets. It is time for another premiere video of the Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here, another premiere video of Regan's Newsround, where I cover 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets with regards to news in the United Kingdom. The date and time of this recording is the 27th of February at 11:03 AM UK time, just for reference. The 7 stories we're going to be covering is, first will be from The Guardian with the headline of Prioritising Artists Over Tech in AI Copyright Debate MPs Say. The next one will be from the Sky News with the headline that 7 companies have been named and shamed in the Grenfell Inquiry, face being placed in a blacklist. The next one will be from the BBC with the headline that half of homes need heat pumps by 2040, the government has been told. The next piece we'll be looking at is one from an exclusive from the iPaper with the headline that foreign aid cut sparks fear from a threat to UK soft power from China. We'll have an interval before we go to the next one after that, and then from the Independent will be Ofcom is to shine a light on sites not doing enough to protect women and girls. We have this interesting opinion piece that I've got from Open Democracy with the headline that Labour is willfully ignoring that the climate crisis is at a crunch point. And then finally, we will end the piece from Byline Times with the headline that Nigel Farage's US trip to meet Elon Musk was partly funded by a convicted felon. While it is obviously a bit more about outside news, it's obviously because it's Nigel Farage, it's obviously still regards the UK because it's UK news, guys. Don't forget to hit that like button and share across social media. Let's dive straight into it, you guys. So, prioritising artists over tech in AI copyright debate, MPs say. So, the cross-party committees urged ministers to drop plans to force creators to opt out of work being used to train AI. The creators shouldn't have to make that decision. It should be a case of if something is being used by them, they should be. If anybody wants to create AI images or something along of somebody, it should be a case of they need that person's permission. It shouldn't be the case of the creator having to go out of the way to say, no, you can't create AI images of me. It should be, excuse me, can I create AI? It should be the person going out of their way for me. I am deeply concerned about the future of musicians, of artists and artwork out there as well, because there's a lot of artists now who do wonderful work, and their work now is at risk because of artificial intelligence, and it's a real shame. You know, it's sometimes when I see artwork online, I do now. Part of me just feels like, how real is it? Is it just a case that someone just made this artwork because did they actually make it, or is it because it was created by AI imagery? I know there's some not as strong as others, but I'm talking about for me, I'm very concerned about how a lot of people have really are grinding and working hard to actually make it successful for themselves when it comes to music and arts, and it's a very difficult for them to break out. And some people may get fast tracked into it just by the use of artificial intelligence, by not actually being the person behind it, but just coming up with an idea, and the AI computer system makes it for them. It does feel a little bit cheapskate, and I do believe that more needs to be done to make sure that artists are protected, not just even in the UK, but across the globe, as AI, artificial intelligence, become more and more pronounced. So the 2 cross-party committee of MPs have urged the government to prioritise ensuring that creators are fairly remunerated for their creative work over making it easy to train artificial intelligence models. Now, if people do, as like, it should be a case of whether they want it. Like, if someone creates an AI imagery of something, and they credit the original, and they say credit to the original person, like whoever it is, right? It should be down to that person whether they approve of them having AI imagery created of them or not. I think that's a really, the original creators, they need to have their say in it. The MPs argued that there needs to be more transparency around the vast amounts of data being used to train generated AI models, and urged the government not to press ahead with the plans to require creators to opt out of having their data used. Yeah, they should not have to. yeah, they shouldn't have to go out of their way to do that. Government's preferred solution to the tension between AI and copyright laws is to allow AI companies to train the models on copyrighted work by giving them an exemption for the text and data mining, while giving creatives the opportunity to opt out through a rights reservation system. Yeah, but it's not everyone is going to know that. That's the problem. The chair of the Culture, Media and Sports Committee, Caroline Dinage, said that there has been a groundswell of concern from across the creative industry in response to the proposals, which illustrate the scale of the threat artists face from artificial intelligence pilifying the fruits of their hard-earned success without permission. Yeah, this is the problem. She added that making creative works fair game unless creators say so. Was akin to burglars being allowed into your house unless there's a big sign on your front door explicitly telling them that thievery isn't allowed. I'm not sure if I would use that analogy, but okay, I suppose we could go along with it. Aside from any changes to copyright, there needs to be much tougher requirements on transparency to the data being used to train AI models, so creators will know without ambiguity where they need to be remunerated for their use of their works. The Culture, Media and Sports Committee and Science, Innovation and Technology Committee were responding to a government consultation on AI and copyright after their joint evidence session earlier this month with representatives from AI startups and the creative industry. The letter to ministers called on the government to improve transparency around training data to enable creators to identify the use of their works, ensure that any copyright holders who opt out aren't penalised through reduced visibility, and enable consumers to make informed choices about which AI models to use. Yeah, I do agree that, there needs to be as much transparency as possible on this. The letter warns that without this, the biggest impact would be felt by the long tail of creators and journalists already operating under financial constraints. Backlash to the government's AI proposals among celebrities and the creative industry have been steadily growing in recent months. On Tuesday, more than 1,000 musicians, including Kate Bush, Damien Albarn, and Anne Lennox, released a silent album in protest. Yeah, because they feel because artists and musicians are being undermined by artificial intelligence. The letter also states that although AI developers have suggested that training data consists a trade secret, both the EU and the state of California have introduced transparency requirements, including detailed technical or record keeping about training data. Yeah, that the government should look at encouraging companies which are developing per-use revenue sharing models, which it says could move generated AI past its Napster's era, as much as Spotify did in its advert of music streaming following 2 decades of peer-to-peer digital privacy. The MPs also asked that the government publish a full impact assessment for each option proposed on the consultation. Yep, I agree. With robust mechanisms to ensure compliance, enforcement, and redress when it came to copyright. Yeah. Letter also said that other jurisdictions such as the US and the EU have not settled the issue, despite the government fears that AI developers may move to countries with clearer and more permissive rules. This is what I'm a little bit concerned about here. Because obviously the US and EU have a bit more clear and permissive rules. Because we don't have that right now. My fear is that we are not going to be keen to push very clear on the rules. I'm worried about that from this Labour government, because they want to be they want to be ahead when it comes to artificial intelligence. We know they're behind on artificial intelligence. We know we are, but they will want innovation of that kind of technology being built in the UK. So they will be pushing that hard. And my fear is that they may be a bit more relaxed with some of the rules in order to get ahead of the curve. That's my fear here, because you kept hearing a lot about Rishi Sunak talking about AI a lot. He was talking a lot about it when he was Prime Minister. And obviously Labour want to continue that trend. I'm all for the use of artificial intelligence. I just don't want it to be at the expense of other people, but we know that eventually it's going to be the expense of other people. I am generally concerned about artists. I'm generally concerned about musicians. I'm generally concerned about people whose work is going to be stolen or undermined by the use of artificial intelligence. And there needs to be those checks and balances in there. Obviously, it's very difficult of how to find those right checks and balances, I think. I don't think it's straightforward. Some people say it's straightforward. I don't agree. I don't think it's straightforward to do that. But the government needs to be as clear as it possibly can with this. And I hope that they don't relax the rules just because of trying to get ahead of other nations when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence. That's my concern. But I'm sure this won't be the last time we're talking about artificial intelligence. We'll be talking more about it in the future. It's not something that's going to ever go away, guys. I really don't think it's something you just can't ignore it nowadays. You really, really cannot with the direction that the world is going with it. We're going to be switching next to Sky News now with a very different story here. This is regarding the Grenfell guys. So 7 companies have been named and shamed in the Grenfell Inquiry, face being placed on a blacklist. The Grenfell Inquiry was published in September, and as named and shamed companies, it said it was responsible for the 2017 disaster. So let's read into this before I give my thoughts. So 7 companies named and shamed in the Grenfell Inquiry are to be investigated and face being placed on a blacklist. Following the deaths of 72 people in the 2017 Grenfell Tower fire, the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has given the government's response to the inquiry published in September after 7 years. The government has accepted the findings of the report, which found systematic dishonesty contributing to the devastating fires, and there were years of missed opportunities to prevent the catastrophe. Yeah, we've spoken about this on numerous occasions. Again, this didn't have to happen. This didn't need to happen. This was multiple governments not holding and regulations, and not just the government, but companies, regulations, people who knew about there were lots of people within different industries within the construction industry that knew the risks that were being made, and health and safety was put on the back burner with the means of being able to make money. And because of that, lives were lost. And we still know that and still to this day, there are still some high rise buildings that are still at risk. We also know that there are still some buildings, I think it's even some hospitals or schools that have materials, I think it's RAAC, retro orthopedic concrete, that is considered unsafe as well. It feels like that since Grenfell, people have woken up to the fact that perhaps some of the buildings and things that they're in is not exactly safe. It's quite annoying that it's taken people's lives to die for a wake-up call to be made. 7 years has been a long time since this inquiry, and there's still more to come. But they needs to make sure that in the future this never happens again. But the accountability needs to be pointed out as well here. Will there be criminal charges? This is the question that people have been asking a lot when it comes to Grenfell. So 7 organisations have criticised the report will now be investigated under Procurement Act, Ms. Rayner said. If they are demanded to have engaged in professional misconduct, their names will be added to the debarkment list, which all new contracting authorities will have to take into account when awarding new contracts. Atronics said Goblin, the former owner of CO Tex, Ivanka Harley Fays, Kingspan Institution, Rhino Maintenance, and Studio E Architects will all be investigated. So these are the companies apparently all had a part in this. I would not be surprised if people who were working at the time when this incident happened have quit the jobs or fled the country or whatnot, just to avoid any scrutiny. Cabinet Office Parliamentary Secretary Georgia Gals said that the organisation will be notified when an investigation is opened, and warned investigations into other organisations could take place. The London Mayor Sadiq Khan said companies named and shamed in the report should be barred from future contracts, and this must now finally happen without further delay. Yeah, they should be banned. That's it. There should not be a discussion about this. You do not associate yourself with these organisations, because their number one priority is money, and they don't care if people's lives are lost, because they knew these companies, like, they can point fingers at each other about who did what and who approved what and how, but at the end of the day, they are all obviously the investigation is still taking place, but someone is there. There is multiple companies, multiple people who are responsible for this. It's not just a case of failures from successive governments here, Conservatives and Labour, but it's also a failure of these institutions, these companies, these businesses as well. So it's a multitude of things. You can't really point it to one particular person or one particular company responsible for Grenfell. It's a multitude of things. Here. Ms. Rayner, who is also the Housing Secretary, said the government accepts the findings of the inquiry and will prioritise residents and protect their interests and make sure that the industry builds safe homes and provides clear accountability and enforcement. She apologised again to the families and the friends who had died, survivors who lived around the tower. To have anyone anywhere living in an unsafe home is one person too many, she told the House of Commons. This will be our guiding principle that must be that of anyone who wants to build for care and for our homes. This will be an important part of the legacy of Grenfell. She announced stronger protections for social housing tenants and to give them more power to challenge landlords and demand safe, high-quality housing. The 4 million home training will be expanded, a government funding initiative that provides guidance and training for social house tenants. However, the National Housing Federation, which represents about 800 housing associations, said it missed the point, as it said social housing tenants cannot access government funding to remove dangerous cladding, and manufacturers of unsafe materials have not contributed to the cost. Kate Hudson, the chief executive of the NHF, told Sky News that the money to fund this work is coming from people on the lowest income in this country. And to make matters worse, it means fewer homes will be built in those dire situations on the housing waiting list, listed in overcrowded homes and stuck in temporary accommodation. The government must put an end to this unfair funding regime and give social housing providers and their residents equal access to building safety funding. This is so infuriating. This is the part that really infuriates me, is that they people who live in these unsafe accommodations, they should not be paying a goddamn penny towards it. And the problem is that there's nobody's really doing enough about this. Not the government or local authorities on this. Not enough. Too many innocent people are having to pay up to fix the problems of houses or rented accommodations that they are in that is of no fault of their own. They didn't know, they weren't aware, and they're being told that they have to pay up for it. It's not right that the customer at the end of the day, or the person living in that home, should pay. It's not right, guys. Excuse me. Ms. Rayner also announced that a new single construction regulator to those responsible for building safety are held to account. Tougher oversight for testing and certified manufacturing and under construction products with serious consequences for those who break the rules. But it's about who's overseeing this. That's a good question I have there. A legal duty of canter through the new Hillsborough law, so public authorities must disclose the truth. Stronger, clearer and forcible legal rights for residents, so landlords are responsible for acting on safety concerns. Yep. A publicly accessible record for all public inquiry recommendations. And Polly Thunkal, Chief Executive of Housing and Homeless Charity, said it is right that the government has committed to take forward all the inquiry's recommendations, but said it needs to boost funding for legal aid so that people can actually enforce their rights as tenants. Yeah, this is the legal aid is a big factor. That's something that has been pushed and quietened and ushered down by the Conservatives because they don't want people knowing what rights people have. This is something that Labour need to get a grip of more. Earlier this month, the government announced the tower, which had stood covert in its scaffolding since the fire 8 years ago, will be carefully demolished in a process likely to take 2 years. As for the demolishing of it, I know some people have mixed feelings about it. I agree with the government that it should come down on that, but I've said my piece on it before, but I agree with the government decision for it to be taken down. There's no benefit to keeping it up. It's not ideal to keep it up. I understand some people have different mixed feelings about it, but I think it should come down personally. Like, I'm glad that we the companies that have been named and shamed, but I want to see accountability. It's not just because the thing is that even though these companies have been named and shamed, it's too often these days that people could just start up a new company, change its name and move on, readdress, after this is all said and done. What they'll do is they'll just change their name or their logo and whatnot and redefine themselves so that they're not perceived as that. Or they'll basically go bankrupt and let their enterprise or business shut down and then start a brand new one from scratch, having no association with Grenfell. That's what I think some of them may do just to get around it. I hope not. I hope that we learn from this. I really hope we do, but I'm not holding my breath on it. I'm really not. There's a lot of things I just do not trust either governments, both Conservatives or Labour, to do enough of. And I really hope we do not have another incident like this ever again. I really hope not, guys. Switching gears now, we're going to be looking at a piece here from the BBC, you guys. We're still talking about homes in general here. The headline is half of homes need heat pumps by 2040, the government has been told. So 4 in 5 cars should be electric, and half of homes should have heat pumps within 15 years, says the government's independent climate advisor. This I really do agree. We need to be doing more to reduce our energy bills, reducing the costs. That is something that is a big problem. Our energy bills are going up again this year. It's ridiculous and it's outrageous that we should be paying more for our energy. You know, the government talks a lot about energy independence, about us being able to look after ourselves and not have to rely on others when it comes to energy. And yet our energy bills are still going up. Why is that? Why are we still paying more for our electricity? Why are we still paying more for gas? Why are we still paying more for these things? We should not be. Now, heat pumps obviously heat pumps obviously, I agree that more of that needs to be done when it comes to people's homes. What I also agree needs to be done is more installation. We need to ensure not just new homes that have installation. That should be a guaranteed thing. But also, we have a lot of homes that have been built that just do not have it, and they need to be put in with it. This will significantly reduce heating bills for a lot of people. This will significantly reduce the need for people to put on their heating, because it will, because of course, what it does is exactly what it says on the tin: insulates the home, protects the home even more from the cold during the winter times. And we want to reduce. Not only do we want to reduce the bills, but it's also good for the national grid as well. So it's a double benefit there, just as much as it is heat pumps as it is there. More obviously when it comes to solar panels. I know some people. I still think we should be doing. I would like to see personally nearly every single home in the UK have solar panels. I personally would like that, and I think the government needs to incentivize more people to do that. You need to incentivize them with cash. I know the government will say they don't have a lot of cash, but if we want to go more green, we need to encourage more people to do so. As for electric cars, before we get into the piece as well, electric cars, I will just say this about electric cars: need more charger points. Everything should be all under one banner. It should not be the case of multiple companies when it comes to car chargers and whatnot. It needs to be all one system. I feel it needs to be. I feel that there's not enough car chargers around the country in England for that, and there needs to be cost cutting ways for it as well. So we need to have more chargers. They need to be more reliable, and they need to be cheaper. They need to be cheaper than gas cars, fuel cars. If we can do that, we can transition more people out. And then because obviously we are in cost of living crisis, it costs money for all these things as well. So people, if they want people to make these transitions, we need to incentivize people to do so. You can't just tell people to do them. You've got to incentivize people to do so of these transitions. So by law, the UK must reach net zero, no longer adding to the total amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere by 2050. UK greenhouse gas emissions have more than halved since the 1990s, largely thanks to less electricity coming from fossil fuels and more from renewables. But the Climate Change Committee, CCC, says that to reach the 2050 target, we'll also need to change how we drive and heat our homes. The Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, said the government would consider the advice and respond in due course. We owe it to current generations to seize the opportunity for energy security and lower bills, and we owe it to future generations to tackle the existing climate crisis, he said. Under the UK law, the CCC provides independent advice on how much the UK should emit over a 5-year period, known as carbon budgets, and how it might get there. Each carbon budget is a stepping stone to net zero by 2050. The latest advice is that by 2040, emissions should be 13% of their 1990 levels for the UK to stay on track. The CCC advice is not policy, but the government has historically accepted it. If it does, the target will become legally binding, but the government will still decide how to achieve it. So this is from the source from the Climate Change Committee, the CCC here. The path to net zero by 2050, millions of tons of CO2 equivalent emissions per year. This is what we're supposed to be projecting here. So you got here the past emissions, we have gradually, according to this, we have gradually gone down. This is the phase what we're supposed to be doing for phase from what we are doing here. So we're about, so you can see the line there, we are 2025. This is where we are at right now. So we are making that progress, but obviously we still have a ways to go. And obviously, there's this thing called the expansion of Heathrow Airport, which is obviously great. That may be getting the go ahead as well. As well, expansions of other airports, which is a concern about how that's going to be dealt with when it comes to emissions as well. Meeting these long-term goals will mean significant changes in the years ahead. 1/3 of emission cuts between now and 2024 needs to come from households that make low-carbon choices, the CCC says. This will mainly be through switching from petrol and diesel cars to electric vehicles, from fossil fuel boilers to heat pumps, making use of growing supplies of clean electricity. Smaller contributions will come from other choices such as eating less meat and dairy. Yeah, this one is still a big problem. The thing about meat and dairy, the biggest crux that I think is, and this is coming from someone who is a meat eater, it's cheaper for people to buy fast food, junk food, than it is for them to buy healthy food. Until you deal with that, you have to tie these changes all to money. You have to tie all these things. You have to think about it from the consumer point of view, and they're not thinking about this for money. If you make fast food, if you make meat, if you make these things more expensive, and you make healthy food cheaper, then you will encourage more people to eat more healthy, to choose less of these things. But you've got to use money as an incentive for people to do so. That's what you've got to do. You can't just tell people to do so. It doesn't work like that. As the graphic below shows, these changes are ambitious, but they are deliverable, argues the CCC, without people having to scrap their existing boiler or car early. Other emerging technologies like mobile phones and internet connections have achieved similar rates of increase previously. This is also from the CCC. This is the rapid uptake of electric cars and heat pumps needed to meet the target. So currently, the electric cars on the road are 2.8%. We're still a ways off from reaching that. But I do think that can change over time, but it's just about how much of that we can make a difference. But I've said my piece on what we need to do about that. Homes with a heat pump, 0.6%. That's very, very low. Yeah, we need to... More needs to be done on that there, without a shadow of a doubt. For electric vehicles, the market is already pretty much at parity with internal combustion engine vehicles. So I think that naturally will start to be a choice people make. Emma Pitchbeck, the chief executive of the CCC, told the BBC Today programme. So for heat pumps, we're saying that it's different. The costs are still higher than a fossil fuel boiler, and that the government needs to act to help get those technologies. Yeah, this is the problem. The cost, again, it comes down to cost. If it costs more, they're not going to do it. That's the biggest the headache. But the rollout rate that we've looked at is similar to what happened to our neighbours in Ireland, but also much colder countries in Europe. Emission cuts will be needed in other areas too, such as farming and flying, two of the hardest sectors to decarbonise. The CCC will no longer directly advise against a net airport expansion, which it has previously, but it warns that the cost of decarbonising aviation will need to be picked up by the airlines, which will probably drive up ticket prices. It says we'll need to eat less meat and dairy too in the CCC's pathway. Sheep and cow numbers fall by 27% by 2040, and the area covered by woodlands rises from 13% to 16%. The costs of tackling climate change have become highly politicised in recent years. The CCC estimates that most of the expense will be borne by private sectors, and calculates from the savings from moving for more effective technology should outweigh the costs by the early 2040s. So we are crystal clear in this analysis. In this carbon budget, for the first time, we'll start to see the economy making savings from this investment. And they make savings over and above what they would stay dependent on fossil fuels, Ms. Pitchbeck had told the BBC News. This should improve energy security and filter down lower bills in the long term. The CCC argues, provided that the government acts to make electricity cheaper. It advises removing policy costs, funding social and environment schemes from electricity bills. That would cut them by about 19% based on expected 2025 prices. The CCC says, making it more cost effective for people to switch to electric vehicles or heat pumps. These costs could instead sit on gas bills or general taxation. Regardless of what you think about climate change, what we are laying out today is a massive industrial revolution, says Ms. Pitchbeck. It will save economic money by 2040. It saves people money on their energy bills. It saves people money on their driving costs, but all of that is underpinned by a cheaper electricity price. It's going to be interesting to read the opinion piece on open democracy on why they think Labour is not going to achieve all this. Is not doing this, but we'll have to wait. We'll get to that in a bit later on in the video here. But I mean, all this stuff sounds really good, but it's a case of, are we actually doing enough? Are we doing more on this? I hope we are. I generally hope we are, and I hope we're taking this seriously. I hope that we do get closer to that direction. I know that it's a lot of people, some people are just generally have their heads in the sand and just think the whole thing is a hoax or it's a conspiracy theory, when they just don't want to listen to experts about it. And the moment that they hear a so-called expert saying that it's not real, or it's that climate change isn't real and whatnot, it's because that what they fail to understand is that scientist is being paid money to say that. That's the thing that they don't want to accept. They don't want to accept that someone's actually paying them to spread lies, because people can be bought. People can be bought, and that's exactly what some of them have been. But we'll talk more a bit about climate a bit later as well. The next story I've got for you guys here before we get to our interval is one from the iPaper. The headline is "Foreign Aid Cuts Sparks Fear Over Threat to UK Soft Power from China." This is exclusive from them. So I've talked on Snowflake Watch live stream, and I do recommend checking out that live stream on last Wednesday. I talked about how important foreign aid is and how much it makes a difference to people's lives, and it is such an important difference maker. And it's a real shame that it's being put at risk here because of the need to increase defend us. Some at senior level governments are easy about the move, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them, because the thing is that foreign aid, it's not just about helping the poorest in society. It's about us having influence in the world. Now, some people have argued, and some YouTubers and some people have argued that they are not cutting from the biggest issues, the biggest crises on the planet. Now, they're saying that. And also some people, one or two people I've seen argue that they're going to increase foreign aid back to 0.7% by the end of this parliament. Now, if they do, then I'll take what I say back about foreign aid. I will take what I'll say about the Labour government back. I will gladly take it back if they do. But it's still the fact that they did not have to do this. There is still a political choice to cut foreign aid. And when people say, oh, they didn't have it, they need to get the money fast. Well, there's plenty of ways they could get the money. Like, there is plenty of ways to get the money. You shouldn't be doing it at the expense of the poorest in the world. And it's a political reason. And another political reason that they're doing it is because it won't affect them when it comes to elections, when it comes to votes. And it will anger a lot of people. To try and justify and say that this won't harm anyone in any way, shape or form is nonsense. Like, you can play it down as much as you want, but people will die as a result of this. They will. Plans to cut the foreign aid to pay for higher defence spending are sparking concerns within the government that it will be harder to combat Chinese influence in developing countries. So Keir Starmer announced on Tuesday that he would slash the aid budget from 0.5% to 0.3% of the national income in order to push up defence spending, but the move has caused disquiet in his cabinet and among Labour MPs. The iPaper understands that some of the senior level of the government believe that the budget reduction could make it harder to counter Chinese influence in the so-called Global South, as there will be less cash to help developing companies access global finance alongside direct support. It is self-evident that it's easier to do this in a 0.5% world than a 0.3% world, a government source said. When Donald Trump announced drastic cuts to the United States aid budget this month, the Foreign Secretary David Lammy said it was a big strategic mistake to scale back development funding because it would allow China and others to step into that gap, although now he backs the UK government's decision. Yeah, so it basically undermined David Lammy here. He made David Lammy looks like a complete, absolute idiot now. And he knows that. He knows he's made his Foreign Secretary look like a complete wally. His warning was, however, echoed by senior Labour MP Sarah Champion, who warned that the UK's enemies will be delighted at the aid cuts and would look to grow their influence where Britain is stepping back. The Commons Development Committee chair told the iPaper it's no secret that the biggest threats to UK security are China, Russia, Iran and cyber terrorism. MPs have been warned of this for over a decade. So Starmer defends the aid cut. The decision to cut aid spending in order to fund a higher defence budget is not a sign of Britain pulling out on the global stage, so Keir Starmer has insisted. Speaking on his way to Washington last night, the Prime Minister also promised that the international development budget would return to its original levels again in future and denied that he was ceding ground to Beijing. Well, the problem is that Once you've given that ground away, because that is what you are doing, just because you increase the foreign aid back, like you're going to do in the future, doesn't guarantee that you will still have that same influence. It doesn't guarantee it. You might think, oh, it's okay, we're going to bring it back later on. Well, there's no guarantee is that. It's you can apply that same concept to all sorts of things. Just because you're stepping back now doesn't mean you're guaranteed to go back into that slot. It's easily, sorry, I apologize. It's easily like the likes of China and that can still have, can take those slots. He said, I thought it was important that not only I set out the biggest sustained increase in defence and spending since the Cold War, but also explain that pound for pound, pound and pence, how we're going to pay for it, which is why I announced the cuts to overseas development. Now, it's not a decision I wanted to take. It's not a decision I've taken it lightly. It does actually mean we're pulling out on a global scale, far from it. And China actually hasn't been given that much in aid in any event, but we're not pulling away. Pledging to continue supporting the war zones which are most in need of help, Starmer added. I've been really clear about Gaza, Ukraine and Sudan. Yeah, I am pleased that he's still about them, but there are still obviously other places, because obviously there are conflict zones at the moment. We're not pulling it out. Obviously we want to restore and increase overseas aid as soon as economically circumstances allow us to do so. The aid target also written into law state that the UK should spend 0.7% of its gross national income on international development, but it can be suspended in an emergency. Since the pandemic, the government has been spending 0.5% and it will now be reduced to 0.3%. China has been strategically developing relationships around the world, though its Belt and Road Initiative, branded as aid, is actually providing infrastructure and that it leases back or provides loans to build, but delivered using Chinese workers. This has allowed China to have leverage across the globe with countries who have historically been our allies. Make no mistake, our enemies will be delighted that we are leaving the development stage, and they will be filling the gaps to our detriment. Luke De Palva, director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, the IPAC, of which Champion is a member, warned that the UK should observe how cuts to US aid have created a soft power opportunity for China, and warns that we should be very wary of handling Beijing's opportunities to bend over countries to their will. For example, though, its Belt and Road Infrastructure Development Initiative. Pressed on whether China would fill the void left by aid cuts, the Prime Minister's official spokesperson said, I reject that characterisation. The Prime Minister has spoken of his pride that the overseas development budget, and obviously doesn't take that decision that he took lightly yesterday. But the defence budget increase will be important to national security, important to protecting our borders, as he said. It is important that we continue to support key areas such as Gaza and Ukraine. In the Commons, SNP leader Stephen Flynn accused the Prime Minister of following the populist playbook by cutting foreign aid. Whilst we support increased defence spending, we cannot support the populist playbook of cutting foreign aid. Instead, that is a position which was shared and agreed by the Foreign Secretary just a matter of days ago, when he said it would be a strategic mistake that would allow China to step in. Why was the Foreign Secretary wrong and the Prime Minister right? Yeah, like I said, he completely and totally undermined his Foreign Secretary, made him look like a complete fool in doing so as well. Like I said, like, you can talk about, like, there are things that they are protecting within the foreign aid budget, and you can dive into the details, but the reality is that people, the general consensus is that people in the UK, they are being their minds are being poisoned by a lot of by some really bad social media and right wingers out there who are painting this perception that foreign aid is bad, that foreign aid that we are throwing money away doing that, and that is just completely untrue. I do fear that this Labour government may not bring it back to 0.7%. I hope they do, but I don't hold them to. I don't hold my breath to that at all. You know, some of the decisions that they've already made have been really bad. I think this is a mistake. I think this will, like, you can say China are not really giving much of an initiative to step into those holes, but considering that you've had US aid cut and now you're having the UK's aid cut, I don't know if any European nations right now have done the same, but you're opening the door for China. You're opening the door for them, and it does save lives. It does make a difference out there. It does allow us to have influence. It does allow us to have relationships. It's not about having a loan and buying back. It's about doing what's right, about our humanity here. We should be doing everything we can to help other nations, and I don't agree with this decision. But if it brings it back to 0.7%, then great. At the end of it, then great. But This is not the right way of doing things. Not in my view, anyway. So, guys, going to take a little break here to break the ice a little bit. We've got a couple more. I've got a couple more videos here on Regan's Newsround. If you've been watching from the start, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this funny video here. This is from the YouTuber Nerdine Skinner Comedy. Do check out their YouTube channel. It is another Pet Peeves with Rachel Reeves. Hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Pet Peeves with Rachel Reeves. This week I'm mainly peeved with CVs. People keep saying I changed mine. Well, yes, I did. Truth time! HBOS actually stands for Home Bargains Office Supplies, and BOE doesn't stand for Bank of England, it stands for Bank of Embryos, where I used to help with sperm donations. I was very hands-on. People didn't like it. So yes, I did change my CV to make it look better, but everyone does. CVs can go in the peeve bin. I'm also peeved with leaving presents. Oh, Rachel, you spent loads of money on a meal. You bought your boss a really expensive handbag. Oh well, I was just trying to be nice, but apparently people don't like that. Well, how else am I meant to buy friends? Leaving presents can go in the peeve bin. Finally, I'm peeved with new mothers and their babies. Oh, does my baby look cute? No, it looks like a shriveled potato. It cries all the time and has no bladder control. I don't want to be reminded of my own personal issues. New mothers can go in the peeve bin. Goodbye.
I bet if I'm Rachel Reeves and if I'm Rachel Reeves and I see that, I'd be absolutely peeving at Nerdine Skinner's comedy of her. Yeah, but do check it out. The link for the funny video is in the description, guys. Please do. Excuse me. And there's just a reminder, if you haven't already, guys, please hit that like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media. If you haven't subscribed, do consider subscribing as well. And if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, it really does make a difference. You can join the YouTube membership for as little as 99p. There's a join button down below. Do consider checking it out. There's some great perks that you get for being a YouTube member. And if anyone has been a YouTube member or does consider being one or has renewed it, thank you so much for your support. Really does make a massive difference. There's also the Rumble and Patreon content, and there's additional content on those platforms as well that you can check out as well. And if you want to find me on any other social medias, again, click the links tree button down below. There's a links tree button. You click that, that opens you up to all my social medias if you want to find me on any specific social media there. So thank you very much for listening. Let's carry on, guys. A very important story here to talk about because here from the Independent. So Ofcom are to shine a light on sites not doing enough to protect women and girls. Oh, sorry, 1 second. The regulator has published new guidance for tech firms on protecting women and girls under the Online Safety Act. So I don't know if anybody saw the committee hearings recently of the likes of Facebook and Meta. Obviously not Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk themselves, but chief executives of them were attending committee hearings. Executives of those social media companies were attending committee hearings this week, and they got quite a ranting at them from some MPs, especially some of the women and some of the language that they was used. I do recommend checking out Daily Blase's YouTube channel. He's covered a video on some aspects of some of the comments being used there, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. Literally the tip of the iceberg when it comes to women and girls online. It is just ridiculous. And I say this, it's just ridiculous how easy it is for people to create an account on social medias and literally can attack women simply because they are women. And they can get away with it so easily. And there is so lack of accountability. There is a severe lack of accountability. You know, it's not just about the all people. We're talking about women and girls specifically because they are always targeted more than anything. I remember when, because I'm obviously I'm still a video gamer, but I'm not as much as I used to. But even when I was younger, I used to play a lot of Call of Duty, and I remember whenever women played Call of Duty back then, and this was back in the days thing, like I didn't care, me personally, but I know that whenever a woman on the mic was talking, they would always be mocked, or it would always be like weird to guys. And it's just like, and this thing is still happening though. We still have I would say I think the gaming industry has done a lot more for women and girls and helped that. But there are still barriers and there's still challenges for women and girls. And this is the same thing here. Again, we have, and this ties into one of those videos that I covered a while ago about pornography. As some of you guys, I do recommend checking out that video, because pornography is obviously having an effect on men and their perceptions of women too. So a lot of these things are intertwined into this situation here. I'm glad Ofcom are going to shine a light on these on sites that are not doing enough, because I do agree that there's not enough equality online when it comes to, I'm someone I have a Discord server, and I'm very lucky to say that there are a few women who are part of that server, and I don't ever think of them as any different to the men. I think of them as, people who are part of the community. And they're allowed to come and go as they please, just like anybody else, as long as they follow the rules. It's the same with my wrestling page that I have. I want to make sure that the women who do follow that page, that they are treated the same, just like anybody else. I really do think, and I don't treat them any differently. Treat everyone the same. That has always been my perception. And I always hit that line completely 100% all the time? No, sometimes I fall off that line, and if I do, then I will and I'm get called out for it. Absolutely, I will apologize if I do. But there's a lot of men who think that it's okay to look or treat women indifferently just because that they're women. It's 2025 and we're still having this issue. I know, it's frustrating. So tech platforms who are not doing enough to protect women and girls online will have their inaction highlighted so that the public can make a choice about whether or not to use them, Ofcom has said. Well, if they're not doing enough to protect women and girls, then it should be made clear not to use these platforms. Or perhaps we should go one step further. I don't know, ban them. Maybe that should be the option. The online safety regulator said, as well as enforcing new legally binding rules around protecting users from harm under the Online Safety Act, and also shine a light on those failing to be proactive in making their site safer and easier to use. The warning comes as Ofcom has published new guidance on measures tech firms should consider using to help better protect women and girls on the site, who say they are disproportionately impacted by online harms. The guidance joins or already published legally binding codes of practice on illegal content, and protecting children online have already been put in place by Ofcom and will begin to take effect next month under the Online Safety Act, and which carry large financial penalties if found to have been breached. The additional guidance set out a range of proposals which tech firms are also being encouraged to put in place, including the better use of technology to prevent intimate images abuses, and ask sites to consider introducing tools which could help spot and fix ways sites can be exploited by abusers. I do think if it persists, there should be criminal charges across. I think if you threaten criminality charges against firms or threaten banning against firms, you put them under more severe pressure to make sure that this kind of stuff is dealt with straight away. That's my position. That's my feeling, is that if you apply criminality or apply the possibility of them being banned in your country, and specifically we're talking about the UK here, I feel that you will encourage these companies to take it more seriously. I don't think fines are enough, especially with some of the money that these lot make. Ofcom Jessica Smith, who led the development of the guidance, said the regulator was also prepared to use its powers under the Online Safety Act to highlight platforms not doing enough to protect women and girls on their sites and through the new online safety transparency reports. Effectively, what we are going to do is use our information gathering and transparency powers, she told the PA news agency. So one of the things we're committed to do is, once the guidance is finalised and sufficient period of time has passed, is we'll publish a transparency report that shines a light on what platforms are doing and not doing to keep their users safe. It's about putting information out there so users can be informed and make a choice about what they spend their time online. She added, what we're saying to platforms today is that you have a commercial choice. We know that women spend longer online than men, for example, on a daily basis, and we think it's make a good commercial sense to take their safety seriously. For some platforms, there may not be a choice to do that. And that is their decision. But as I said, we will make sure that people know what kind of space they are entering when they go into that kind of platform. Ofcom Chief Executive Dame Milelle Dons said the new guidance was a call to action for online services. There's not only a more imperative for tech firms to protect the interests of female users, but also make sound commercial sense, fostering greater trust and engagement with a significant proportion of the customer base, she said. Under the Online Safety Act, platforms will be legally required to follow a new set of duties around the protection users from harm online, with fines of up to 10% of global turnover for those who fail to do so, which could run into billions of pounds for larger services. New regulation of the online would be broadly welcome, but some charities and campaigners have warned that the current plans have taken too long to be implemented and do not go far enough to protect users from harm. In response, Ms. Smith said, we're at fairly early days when it comes to the implementation of the Act. We still think at this stage the testing and implementing the powers, that's how we have now. I know this has taken a while, so I really understand people's frustration. I think when it comes to this particular guidance, we are balancing quite difficult issues. There are some issues around free expression. I don't like. I'm gonna like. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But free expression should not be an issue when it comes to protection of women and girls. Like, I don't see how free expression should be an issue when it comes to women and girls being allowed to have these conversations. Now, to have conversations and being allowed to feel that they could be in the conversation. That's just me personally. Ofcom have now opened a consultation period on the guidance, and Ms. Smith said it was vital to regulate. Also heard that from men and boys on the issues raised. I do think men and boys should have their voices in it too, even though it's more about women and girls, of course. Obviously, the guidance is focused on women and girls, as we've spoken to a lot of survivors and women advocate organisations as part of the process. But it's also for men and boys. These tools can be for everyone, she said. We know boys are more exposed online to online misogyny than girls, and so we think that this will have a broader effect, and we are keen to speak to men and boys as part of our consultation process. And I like that, because I like that they're adding that as well, because I do think that consultation matters as well when it comes to it, of course, because they are the ones. Men and boys are more exposed, as they say, to the misogyny than anything. And we know who the kinds of people that they get exposed to who use that kind of influence. We know who they are when it comes to it. I do hope that it helps. I do hope that it becomes better for them. I really, really hope so. I know a lot of people switched off. I know after the American election, a lot of women just basically went away from social media. Quite a lot of them turned off social media because of how toxic and whatnot it was, and I totally understand that. I hope it really does make a difference. But we'll have to see over time how things go, guys. We will. I'm sure we will talk about this more in the future. But if you have any more to add, please let me know down in the comments, guys. The next piece I've got for you guys is an opinion piece here from Open Democracy. So the headline is Labour is willfully ignoring the climate crisis that is at crunch point. So Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer appeared happy to pursue growth at any cost, including the destruction of the planet. So this is an opinion piece from Paul Rogers. Now, bearing in mind that we obviously just went from the earlier in this video, we talked about the the climate change and some of the tasks that Labour could potentially be doing here. Now, I've said this before about Open Democracy. So I really want to make this point clear before we go any further. They have been quite, even long before the general election, Open Democracy has been quite a hammer to Labour, and that's totally fine. And you know, I'm not a Labour person myself, and I think some of the pieces and articles that come from Open Democracy, I think are worth hearing. here. And the decision to expand Heathrow, I still think it's a mistake. Now, some people have argued that the expansion is not actually going to increase emissions. I still have a hard time believing that. But obviously, Paul Rogers here from his piece, he doesn't think that enough is being done by Labour. So let's read into what he's saying here, guys. I have to bear in mind that this was on the 7th of February, so this was quite a while ago as well. So, last weekend the temperature at the North Pole was 20 degrees above average. Talking about ice melting points in what's described as a very extreme warming events by Mike Farage of the Finnish Meteorological Institute. That's very scary. 4 days later, things still got worse still. The Copenhagen's Climate Change Service reported that last month was just the warmest January ever recorded at 1.75% hotter than pre-industrial times. This is especially worrying since scientists expected temperatures to fall this year, as La Nina took over from the previous year El Niño. We now face the worrying possibility that the impact of cooling Las Ninas might be declining. Amid these developments, British Chancellor Rachel Reeves has backed plans to build a third runway at Heathrow, which climate campaigners warned would be catastrophic, and reports have emerged that she is also poised to support the opening of the giant Rosebank oil field in the North Sea, and which Energy Secretary Ed Miliband has described as climate vandalism. And I've said this about the Rosebank oil field, right? If anyone, and I mean this, anyone tells you that this will bring down your energy bills, they are lying to you. Yeah? And this is not even Britain's oil, it's Scotland's oil. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is that that oil goes straight onto the global markets. Doesn't even touch the UK economy. Doesn't even touch anything when it comes to UK energy bills. Okay? It goes straight onto the global markets. So it has, all it'll do is create jobs. It has zero effect on the UK economy. It has zero effect on us. Reeves' drive for economic growth at the expense of the planet is a far cry from the stronger green agenda that the Labour Party seemed to favour ahead of last year's general election. Yeah, they seem to have changed their tune on that a little bit. Not as much as they used to. Labour's apparent change of heart unfortunately coincides with Donald Trump's taking office in the US. The climate science community is now braced for the impact of Trump's newly appointed Department of Government Efficiency, led by billionaire Elon Musk, running the coach and horse through the US foreign aid program. Yeah, we talked all about this on the other live streams on the channel. Trump's administration has also started removing or downgrading mentions of climate change from federal government web pages, a sign that we are in the worse position than a decade ago after the 2015 Paris Climate Summit, where there were indications that the dangers of climate breakdown were last being appreciated at higher political levels. Now, one of the world's leading climate specialists, Professor James Halson of Columbia University, said that the international target agreed upon at the Paris Summit of limiting global temperature rises to 2% is dead. The pace of global heating has been significantly underestimated, he explained. The fossil carbon state and corporations of the coal, oil and gas markets, meanwhile, are more certain about their prospects and happy to promote their wares with enthusiasm. There were 2,500 oil, gas and coal lobbyists at the 2023 Dubai COP28 Climate Summit. 4 times as many as attended in the previous year in Egypt. That tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? About how important these climate summits are. If forced onto the defence, fossil fuel giants have several options. One is to move the focus from mitigation to adaptation. Another is to boost the potential of carbon capture or storage. And yet another is geoengineering. Then if all else fails, they can fall back on direct air capture, removing carbon from the air once it's dispersed in the atmosphere rather than as it emitted. In other words, we should accept the likelihood of an overshoot of carbon emissions and hope that future technologies can save the day. None of these scenarios have any current relevance, as none can be developed in anything remotely like the time available given the speed of the climate breakdown. There's been an urgent political change at the highest level to engage in emergency decarbonisation. At a lower level, there is some good news at least. The cost of producing electricity from renewable sources is continuing to fall, for the whole process of embracing renewable could accelerate if just 1 or 2 countries demonstrate just how quickly change can come. The UK is in a hugely favourable position to do so, having huge scopes to expand land-based wind and solar power as well as offshore wind. This should be one of British government's 2 absolute priorities, the other being a rapid programme of homes and workplace installation. Further moves will be an immediate tightening of house building regulations, requiring much higher levels of insulation, together with grants and loans for home environmental improvements. Transition to electrical vehicles should be accelerated, along with much of the expansion of public transport. Changes in agriculture must be brought in to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions, with methane emissions controlling frequently being overlooked. Air and marine transport must also be subject to far greater emission controls. Any plans to expand existing airports must be abandoned as nonsensical, and subsidies for oil and gas production should be transferred to renewables. All this and much more would cost money, and a lot of it, but there is plenty of that around, readily available from many sources, including rigorous control of tax evasion and avoidance. Together with the new wealth taxes, climate breakdown is recognised for what it is, the greater threat to UK security. Then the entire defence budget should be rethought in this light. More of this, any government that recognises the challenges facing it, every one of us, would see the need to borrow to help fund the response. So, what of Labour so far? Regrettably, there is little applause despite the efforts of rather isolated few on the front benches and a handful of backbenchers such as Clive Lewis. The party's brave words of a year ago are difficult to find, and Labour is now about growth, at almost any cost, destruction of the planet included. The lobbyist brigade is winning. Even carbon capture and nuclear power are now held by the Labour government as part of the answer, even though the first is unproven and the second will take decades to bring, when we only have years, not decades, to make the change. It has been pointed out on a number of occasions when it comes to carbon capture that it does not work. We've talked about it's been tested and it has failed on every single time. Perhaps Labour will come to its senses as climate disaster accelerates, but it is now a party that's lost any sense of the mission. It's forgotten its history, how a Labour government in the late 1940s took a seemingly impossible task and succeeded in many respects against the odds. Can the party change now? Perhaps, but don't hold your breath. Yeah, I like I said, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Paul Rogers is saying in this piece, but I do agree that I'm not holding my breath on Labour doing everything that we want when it comes to climate. And I do think that what's happening in America is affecting our situation when it comes to climate as well. Obviously, guys, I do want to remind people before I go to the final piece, I am recording this on a Thursday morning, so obviously there may be some one or two things may have updated on some of these pieces as well, so I do want to remind people of that. But I do think there is definitely some food for thought from Paul Rogers' piece there. But let me know you guys' thoughts on that down in the comments below. So we come to our final piece of Regan's Newsround here. This one is from Byline Times. The headline is Nigel Farage's US trip to meet Elon Musk was partly funded by a convicted felon. Is anyone surprised by this? Not really. The Reform leader also accepted $91,000 for 4 hours' work as a brand ambassador for a Mayfair-based gold bulletin firm. Like, this guy is not in the interest of the... Like, people still think that he speaks for Britain. Like, how much of this do you need to throw at people's face to say that there is a problem here? That there is a conflict of interest here? That he's not... You know, and so many people are just going to say, oh, he's just taking up this money because, you know, he's been given work. It's opportunity for him to make more money. It's just like, do you not see what's going on here? A convicted felon. And yet some people think this is totally fine. Some people think this is all totally fine as well. It's absolutely insane, guys. Nigel Farage's recent US trip to meet ex-owner Elon Musk was partly funded by a convicted felon. The latest register, published on the 24th of February 2025, includes details of 2 US trips taken by the Clacton MP. The first, a 3-day visit to Palm Beach, Florida in December 2024, when Farage met with Elon Musk at Mar-a-Lago, the luxury resort owned by the US President Donald Trump. 2 months after the controversial visit, Farage has now declared that the convicted criminal George Cockrell paid for flights from Tel Aviv in New Jersey to Palm Beach, where Farage met with Musk. The cost of the flights were £15,000. Yeah, definitely nothing to see there, is what he'll say. George Cockrell, a former British financier, has long been associated with Farage, has previously served as the head of fundraising for the UK's Independent Party, prior to his arrest in 2016 in the US, where he was accused of wire fraud. Cottrell, also known as Posh George, pleaded guilty to wire fraud and subsequently spent 8 months in prison. But no, there's nothing wrong here, nothing to see here, as the Reform voters will say. This isn't the first time Cottrell has funded Farage's overseas trips. In April 2024, the Reform leader attended a 3-day conference in Belgium, with Cottrell stumping up over $9,000 for the return, travel and accommodation for Mr. Farage and one staffer and security provision. Farage has also confirmed that his visit to the US for Donald Trump's second inauguration last month cost £27,000 and was funded by Christopher Harbon, a businessman who deals in private planes, and the sale of fuel jets was heavily backed to political parties associated with Mr. Farage for many years, donating over $10 million to the Brexit Party and Reform UK since 2019, according to the Electoral Commission records. And there it is there. Name of donor, address of donor, private, and there's the valuation and whatnot. Remember, this information is public as well. In total, the Reform UK leader's latest parliamentary financial declarations revealed that he accepted a further £133,000 outside earnings and donations since the start of 2025, bringing his total non-parliamentary income to more than £1 million a year. This includes a further £4,328 declared since the start of the year in payments for Farage's posts on Musk's ex-social media platform, on top of previous declared payments from the company. This month, Farage also declared, that's February for reference, declared a receipt of another £91,200 for his role as a brand ambassador for Direct Bulletin, a Mayfair registered firm which claims to be the UK's #1 gold bulletin dealer. Remarkably, Farage earned this huge sum for working just 4 hours a month. The £91,200 paid to the Clacton MP in January follows a £189,300 payment from the same company in December 2024. Again, for working a maximum of 4 hours per month, with some of the fees paying for some work undertaken prior to his election in Parliament. The latest available accounts published by Company House for DB London Limited, which trades under the name Direct Bulletin, shows the firm, who was handing over $280,000 to Mr. Farage in the last 3 months, had just employees of 64,037 cash in the bank at the end of 2024. And there he is on the Direct Bulletin. Tax-free gold from Direct Bulletin, Nigel Farage. There it is there. Nigel Farage was approached for comment. He did not respond, because he got nothing to say to it, guys. But no, this is all perfectly fine. It's all legal. There's nothing to see here. Nothing at all, guys. Nothing at all here. We're not supposed to take any of it seriously. Guys, I cannot just tell you just how concerned I am about this man. This man is gaining influence. This man has got voters. He's got supporters. And he's continuing to play this role as a man of the people. It's very possible that at the general election they could gain more seats. It is going to be interesting to see at the local elections this year in May how well Reform UK really does, because that will obviously we'll find out for sure just how the British public really feel since the general election on them. Because make no mistake about it, they have not won many council elections. They've won about 10 to 50 or something out of like 10,000 council by-elections, council elections. So like the Greens have like 900 as just an example. Like, so they're not winning on a local level. But just coming back to this, like, we know he's tied in, and some people have said that he's a Russian asset as well. I don't know if Nigel Farage is a Russian asset. He could just be playing the games, but I would not be surprised if it is found out that he is a Russian asset as well. So, what is his code name? Let me know if he is a Russian asset. What's his code name? Let me know down below, guys, what you think it might be. So, guys, we've come to the end of Regan's news round. But before we head out, I've got one more funny video to see us out, guys, because I always like to do a funny video at the end of the premiere video for those who are watching live when this comes out. If you are somebody who's watching this as a live premiere video, thank you for watching it at the time I put it out. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy this this one here from Matt Green. I haven't seen this one here. Some of you may have seen this one, but it's the headline is "Great Show, but where's the Hitman?"
And then they kiss. The end. Wow, that was a great pitch. Great work.
Gosh, I mean, thank you. You have no idea how much it means to hear you say that.
I just had one little question about your show.
Huh?
Where's the Hitman?
I'm sorry?
The Hitman. I'm sure there must be one in there somewhere. I just must have missed it.
No, there isn't a hitman.
It's a hit woman. I like it. Switch things up. I mean, sure, we've seen a few of those in the past, but it's still a bit unexpected, isn't it?
There isn't a hit woman either.
Oh my god, a hit child. A tiny assassin who's been trained for years by a shadowy underground organisation to take out the bad guys. I love it.
No, there aren't any children in the story.
But there is a dog, isn't there?
Yes, but...
Is the dog an assassin? I mean, it's a bit wacky, but it might work. But by day, he's a good boy. By night, he's a bad dog.
Sorry, no, there isn't any sort of assassin or hitman or trained killer animal in the show. It's a love story set across 3 different continents. It's about friendship and family and what it means to be human.
Which is killing people for money? No. I mean, look, I love all of the things you just said, but remember that hitmen can be quite a broad subject. I mean, think about it. We've had happy hitmen, sad hitmen, angry hitmen, funny hitmen, hitmen with a dog, hitmen with a kid, hitmen who are dying, hitmen who think they're dying but aren't actually dying, fake hitmen, hitmen you think are fake but aren't actually fake, hitmen getting married, hitmen getting divorced, hitmen marrying other hitmen, a hotel full of hitmen, a city full of hitmen, a whole world made up entirely of hitmen, and a documentary about pop music called The Hitmen, which was the result of an unfortunate misunderstanding.
But I don't want to write about hitmen.
Then I'm afraid I'm not sure we have space for you here. Our market research is very clear. People love hitmen.
But are hitmen even real?
They are to us, and in the end, isn't that what really matters?
Is there anyone else I can talk to about this?
Not really. I'm the boss, and whilst I'm here, I make the decisions.
Sounds like I need to hire a hitman.
Good luck, they're not even real.
Oh god, that was a good one from Matt Green, guys. That was a good one from Matt Green. What do you guys make of it? These are the gang behind me who are always lurking on the live streams and premiere videos. You get custom emojis of all these guys behind me: Ollie the Octopus, Blaze the Charmander, Cash the Cookie Monster, and behind the lava lamp is Pingu, there the penguin as well. I just wanted to show them with you guys. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thoughts are down in the comments section below, what you guys make of the stories that we covered today. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, on your way out, hit that like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. Subscribe if you haven't, it'd be really greatly appreciated. And if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. And do check out the Rumble and Patreon content for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.